My name is Keith Brooks. I'm one of the guys here at the Bean Dip channel and all of that jazz. For a while, I've been wanting to do just like more videos. I want to get back into the directing stuff, but it's just complicated to put something together, and I probably will do a couple of things by the end of the year. I'm an actor. I'm a filmmaker. I'm a writer. I'm a nerd. and for a long time I've wanted to do something that's a little bit more freeform vlog sort of thing. Because every time I do like a video, I just want to try to master, or not even master, but learn a new skill set, learn a new style of filmmaking or video making or editing, or just try to improve any of those skill sets in any way that I can, whether it's video essay or something like that. But it's all just like a lot of work. It's all a lot of like research and script writing and a profound amount of editing. I've been wanting to do something less so, maybe more vulnerable, just try to explore that space. I was sick for a long time, doing chemotherapy and everything like that, and I had made some like vlog videos and stuff, but I never had like the bravery to put them out. And and now I'm trying to push myself to sort of be that. I don't know if there's, I don't really care if there's an audience for it. This channel isn't that big or anything, and I don't aspire for it to be. It's more about personal journey and personal exploration and stuff like that. But I figure something like this would be a good way to just talk about whatever's on my mind, or and it doesn't have to be dark, serious things. Today, particularly, something dark, serious is on my mind, but it's maybe some whimsical thoughts or whatever. And just every now and then. Also, I want to get away from the idea of like everything having to be a series or something, just because I do that a lot. I think sometimes I think of things only in bigger terms. And something could be much more simplistic. I like a lot of YouTubers that just have simplistic approaches to things. And YouTube is a medium unto itself. Unlike, filmmaking is one thing. I think YouTubing is something completely different. It's interesting to sort of explore the potential things that you can do there. But all that being said, what am I thinking about today? Well, I'm thinking about Tyre Nichols in Memphis, Tennessee, a young 29-year-old African-American man, father, that was stopped at a traffic stop, pulling from his vehicle, pepper sprayed, tased, tried to get away from the police that were doing this, and they beat him to death. I'm one of the unfortunate people that saw the video, and I wish I hadn't. I don't think I was in the right mental state. I don't think I would ever be in the right mental state to watch that. The police officers that are guilty of this, of beating a man to death, have been arrested. They were part of a special unit called Scorpion, which sounds like it's a Spider-Man gang, that was targeting street crime by wearing street clothes, but with police vests that were bulletproof and said police on them, and taking a harsher look at the realities, is what the press release said. And according to their footage, according to their statements, they initially had pulled over the man for reckless driving, and then once the police department has looked at the videos, there was no evidence that he was recklessly driving whatsoever. So right now we don't know why he was actually pulled over. There is no evidence as to why they pepper sprayed him. There was no evidence as to why they tased him. He did try to get away from them, and that was the justification for beating him to death. They beat him, and then 3 days later he passed away in the hospital. And it's just such a fucked up thing, and far too fucking common that this happens. And it's so common that it happens that partially it's being buried in the news cycle, when this should be the only thing we could talk about. You know what I mean? Like, this should be not a regular occurrence, but, to quote a president, a day of infamy. That, yeah, at least I'm gonna put all my cards on the table, and this is gonna be vulnerable and just my honest feelings about stuff. In the background, you can hear my phone ringing and a rabbit. Silence my phone. The rabbit's still running around, so please excuse her. Like, I'm not a person who necessarily believes all cops are bastards. That's not my bag. I'm a person who actually wanted to be a cop for a while. I got a degree in criminal justice. I really like Batman. I really like that idea of trying to solve crimes. I love Sherlock Holmes. But I am a person that, having gone through the educational aspect of it, realized that even in that is the acknowledgement of the systemic corruption that exists within police forces, and the history of police forces is systemic racism. It is just, all of these things that blatantly they say, yeah, we know. Even in the training aspect, there is still, in criminology, you have the concept of the less dead, which is minority groups that are considered the outliers of society, and not enough resources are put towards the investigations of their murders or their disappearances and all of those things. And that, they are aware that it's a factor, that it is a failure on their part, and yet it still occurs. It would be like, I live in a house and we don't have a door. People keep breaking in. God, we should really do something about it someday. And they're just never fucking doing anything about it. And so I think personally, my personal opinion is police officers, anyone that represents the law, should be held to a higher standard than everyone else. Because if you are going to be the entity that is the embodiment of the ideal aspects of society, then you have to uphold your part of that bargain. You can't cross that line when given too much power. But maybe absolute power absolutely fucking corrupts. But more importantly, a lot of people think that they have absolute power. Oh, it's ridiculous. I live in Atlanta, where we have this whole, controversy now is something called Cop City, where they're building this huge installment that's going to train officers from all over the world. And, nobody was asked about it. The land was seized through illegal means and all this crazy shit that's leading to protests and all of this stuff. There, no one else had a decision except for the police officers and the officials that were getting monetary kickbacks from higher parties. And that being said, with all the protests coming out, there's a lot of conversation about that on my social media that I was seeing. And someone was telling, just making a blanket statement to officers to be careful because an officer had been shot, and that officer turned around and killed the person who shot him. But somebody in, I think, the purest of intentions was saying, hey, officers, be careful. And then a police officer responded and said that police officers aren't careful, we confront and crush, were their words. And I was just left terrified, mortified, and flabbergasted at that ideology that was being transpired, like that was happening right there. Like, no, that, I think every job can be boiled down to a mission statement. Doctors is to heal, to cure, right? Lawyers is to defend or to prosecute. Police, it's on a lot of their fucking cars. Serve and protect and serve, not crush. You're not the military. You're not John Wayne. As much as I like Batman, even Batman knows you don't kill somebody, that there is an actual legal process that's supposed to happen. Even if this young gentleman had did all of the worst crimes in the world, those officers aren't the executioners. He didn't serve as a threat to them when he was running away. If you wanted to apprehend him. Put him in the back of a car. You don't have to beat him to do that. When a child acts up, even if you believe in spanking, you don't beat the child. That's abuse. And with police officers, it should be considered the same. Abuse of power. I know these officers have been arrested. Every single one of them should be found guilty of murder with premeditation. It's gang violence in the worst sense possible. I'm getting worked up about this. Don't watch the video. Or this one if you don't want to, but don't watch that video. The heartbreaking thing is the The young man cries out for his mother while they're beating him to death. My dad died relatively recently, a couple years ago, but still, it's enough of a traumatic event. I had a complicated relationship with my dad. Wasn't the best of guys, you know. Had some abusive tendencies, but I still loved him. He was still my dad, and I took care of him as he was dying. And I've been unfortunate enough to watch several people die in my life personally. And one of the things that happens to you is this humbling process, and you're not even aware of it. It just reduces you to something different. My father, I'd always seen him as a big, strong, threatening man, but I used to have to pick him up and carry him to the bathroom. And he couldn't do things on his own anymore, and he could hardly speak. And when he dreamed, he had nightmares, and he would call out to his mother, a woman who had been dead for 40 years. And just that moment of knowing how helpless you are and just wanting somebody to make it better. And yeah. So anytime I hear a dying man or woman call out for help, that'll forever be what I think of. It's my dad and my inability to make his suffering go away. I think there is no world in which you can justify what happened there. And to me, there is no world where you can justify the gang mentality that some law enforcement officers possess, that some institutions of law enforcement promote. It's a scary job, for sure. It's a dangerous job, for sure, but it's also one that you decided to sign up for. It's also one that you decided to pursue. It's also one that you took an oath to not abuse. And so every time you abuse it, every time there's one of these cases, it leads to a distrust amongst societal members towards those parties. And it might not be everybody that becomes to distrust you, but it's only a matter of time until you extend your abuse to the wrong victim and lose their trust as well. I think the thing is with any sort of injustice, it's my rabbit making a lot of noise. With any sort of injustice, justice is only done once other people take up the banner for the victim. Even in a court trial, when someone has lived to tell the tale, an attorney is the person that sort of waves the flag for them and is the steward for their justice. It's someone else believing them, trying to convince other people to believe in the fault that occurred to them as well. And I don't know what more it takes. Maybe people should watch that video. Maybe people who don't see this issue should watch that video and see a boy cry out for his mother. And these officers not stop kicking him, punching him, when he clearly can't fight back. I don't know, man. I don't know. I just think some of these people have been, I think some officers have been punched down on all of their lives as well. And when they finally have the authority, they say, fuck the free world. And it just becomes, to them, a metaphorical bulletproof vest that nothing can touch them. And that is the problem. That no one should be above the law. That even those who enforce the law also have to live by it. And that this idea of conquer and crush, confront and crush, is the wrong mentality. If you have that mentality, you should not have this job. You are not a military force. You are a peacekeeper. And it is not peacekeeping by any means necessary. You are still a part of a community. I think it's one of the big reasons that the cop city, amongst all the controversy surrounding about how it's being initiated and how it's going through without any public approval or anything like that, but one of it is that it seems like law enforcement officers trying to separate themselves from the rest of society that might behold them to the oaths that they swore. Now, this is a blanket sort of conversation. It's talking about all of the incidents that are happening with police, but I honestly don't believe it's all police officers, but I believe that it is enough police officers that it does require us to take a look at the entire infrastructure and the entire system and question what we need to do to change it and prevent this from happening, or prevent these types of people from getting this job. There's a reason that there's a high majority of serial killers and abusers and sexual assaulters that come from police and military backgrounds. And not saying that the military or the police trained you to become that, but that there is a mentality that attracts itself to violence and attracts itself to abuse of power. And that is a profession with which you can become drunk with power, and it's easy to abuse it. It's excused the first couple of times when you, I don't know, give somebody a citation because you're pissed at them, because they said something wrong. When you try to figure out a charge to give to someone because they said fuck the police in front of you, even though that's not a crime. Like that sort of small minutia is a gateway to bigger things. Now, that being said, I think there are police out there who do an amazing job. But I still think that there are enough problematic issues that it needs addressing, I don't know. I feel like I'm rambling, but I just think if the job of law enforcement is to keep people safe and to keep them feeling safe, then they are failing, because people don't feel safe. And they're definitely not keeping them safe. That more officers have to come to understand what their job actually is and where the lines are. And I also feel like, and this is just the general idea, that you cannot govern someone without humanity. Yes, if you are in a leadership position, you have to make difficult choices, obviously. But you don't Elon Musk it. You don't just burn it to the ground or watch it burn because you got upset one day. That's not leadership. It's a bitch baby. That's what that is. And so you don't, if somebody's reckless driving, you don't escalate that situation. At the moment that you see escalation happening, if that's what occurred, you arrest the person. You're done. You give them time to cool off. You're done. No need to pepper spray somebody. No need to drag somebody out of a vehicle and tase them, especially if the person is unarmed, not confronting you, not being rude to you. That's ridiculous. Were you not trained on your job? Oh, it just pisses me off more and more to think about it. I think that sometimes one of our problems in society is the us versus them mentality that sort of invades us in all corners of life. And one of the terrible things that us versus them mentality leads to is the dehumanizing of the opposing view. So, you've heard of the pretty principle or pretty privilege. This is sort of the opposite end of that spectrum. That if you think you are superior to someone, then it psychologically allows you to treat them however you want to treat them, regardless of what is right or wrong, because you can morally excuse it because you feel that you're better. Look at slavery, look at the Holocaust, look at any sort of racist behavior. Look at, honestly, they say it happens with people who are, and I can attest to this, who are conventionally unattractive, right? talk to any friend of yours that exists within a minority, or that a minority existing within a community of the majority. You would be shocked at some of the hurtful things that have been said to them, right? My friend David is a Filipino guy, and he's awesome, but he like literally tells me that one of his best friend's mom calls him an island Mexican, and she's unaware that that's a bad thing to call somebody, or just completely inaccurate. Even as a person who, again, is not conventionally Ryan Reynolds, I matched with somebody on Tinder, and I said, "Hi, I like your Scream shirt," and their response was, "If you ever touched me, I would kill myself." That was the response, yet they matched with me. But the idea of feeling superior allows you to excuse the worst behavior possible. It allows people who otherwise consider themselves good people to keep going about their day as if nothing bad happened. And I kind of feel that at times that's the magic armor that a shield becomes for some of these officers, because they have been challenged in their mind by whatever this person is doing, because they are in a position of higher power as they perceive it. Then they, feel like they can do anything. They feel like anything is justified. And that mentality is the problem. Now, that's just the first problem. Then we can get into the idea of the systemic racism that accompanies all of that. But it starts with that first beginning ideology that they think they're better than someone else. And I know that seems like such a little minute thing to even address, but I feel that the minute you become arrogant, you lose an important part of what makes you human. And one of the biggest drastic changes happens is your inability to see others as the same as you, or as just as deserving as you, whether that be of love, of life, of patience, anything like that. This is why I don't do the vlog things, because I just keep talking for a long time and I get way too philosophical. I don't know, man. I hope that family finds peace and fucking billions of dollars from the state of Tennessee. Rest in peace.